Hello, welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society webinar series. We're very excited to bring you today's session, The Formula to Digital Twin Success, brought to you by Vertex. My name is Courtney McWhirter. I am the Marketing Communications Manager here at Digital Enterprise Society and your host for this session today. If you have any questions about Digital Enterprise Society, about getting involved, about becoming a member or accessing your membership, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help you with that. Digital Enterprise Society is a nonprofit member association organized to enable the transformation of product development, design, delivery, and maintenance throughout the digital enterprise, regardless of the software tools you're using. We are dedicated to the transformation in the manufacturing enterprise workforce. If you're not already a member of Digital Enterprise Society, as a participant in today's webinar, we invite you to join us using the promo code webinar21 for a free membership. I'd also like to invite you to join us for our new virtual roundtable series, the Digital Download. Our first 3 sessions are on the topic of change. Our June session will be on the evolution of configuration management. So we hope you'll join us for that. It's a unique opportunity to connect with others across the globe, to share your experience, your successes, do some brainstorming and gain feedback on some of the challenges that you might be experiencing, kind of outside the bubble or vacuum that is your organization. So we invite you to join us for that opportunity. Now, today's webinar, again, is brought to you by Vertex, and Matt, the Vice President of Product at Vertex, will be our presenter. Matt has over 15 years in designing and building B2B cloud-based collaborative applications in manufacturing, finance, and defense. In his role at Vertex, Matt oversees the product management and product marketing teams, in addition to leading initiatives on new products and markets. This unique position gives him the insight into ensuring new product capabilities match the expectations and needs of their clients. So I will hand it over to Matt, and thank you again to Vertex for bringing us today's presentation.
Thank you, Courtney. And I will share my screen here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you, DES, for inviting us to do this. Today, I wanted to talk about some of the things that we've been seeing from our customers and prospects in the area of digital twin. And specifically, I've been thinking a lot about basically what I'm calling the formula to achieve the digital twin. And we get into a lot of opportunities, and a lot of them end up stalling or failing or coming short of their ultimate goals. And this is not going to be necessarily a technical talk, but this will just be a little bit of a talk on what I see on how to ensure a successful project. As Courtney was saying, I've got 15 to 20 years now. I turned 40 in 2 weeks of experience in everything from manufacturing, mechanical engineering to I've worked in power plants. I've worked on DARPA projects for doing digital twins in my doctoral work. But for the last couple of years, I've been spending a lot of time doing 3D data visualization, 3D manufacturing visualization, and that's what we do at Vertex. And what we've been seeing a lot of is just digital twin, Industry 4.0, model-based enterprise type projects come our way, and so that's what I spend most of my time doing today. So hopefully, this will be a little bit of me imparting my knowledge about what I'm seeing across the board. And I'm always happy to chat and listen about what customers are trying to do, manufacturers are trying to do out there, and also help them validate what I'm building and influence my roadmap and direction at Vertex. like I was saying, I've got a background in mechanical engineering, but then I've spent a long time in software, and so I've kind of had my foot in both waters here. But from the outside, coming in, as a vendor, not from the manufacturing side, one thing I see quite a bit, and every conference that I go to, or I talk to the influencers within industry. The Industry 4.0 vision, I think, is pretty well understood of what people expect Industry 4.0 to do, right? The downside of that, by the way, Industry 4.0 and digital twin, digital thread, model-based initiatives, I kind of, I know they're all a little bit different, but I see a lot of common things. And one thing, no matter what we're talking about in there, the vision is good. I think the vision makes sense to the practitioners. I think there's still a lot of misunderstandings with executives about what they'll actually achieve with those investments. One thing that we've definitely seen over the last year is that digital transformation projects have just been accelerated. And sometimes the project was kind of someone's pet project to do some new way of doing things at the manufacturer, and it was just kind of slowly progressing. The one thing I've seen a lot of is just the acceleration of some of those projects that really have an impact as a result of the pandemic. However, one thing I see quite a bit is that manufacturers, compared to some of the other industries that I've been in, have been slower to adopt new technologies such as cloud, or even mobile and touch and other things like that. And it depends. I think manufacturing's also maybe ahead on use cases in augmented reality and things like that. But just like the base level IT infrastructure, I still see manufacturers as kind of further behind than other industries. And we'll talk about that here in a second. And I think, really in the last couple of years, there hasn't been one company that I've talked to that, let's say, is a global manufacturer that's not trying to do something related to digital twin. And that could be a digital twin of their factory, it could be product digital twin, it could be process digital twin. But that has definitely been on the rise. But one thing that I've seen is just these projects are slow to get off the ground and get moving and actually get in production. So really the question that I always have is talking to someone trying to build a digital twin, what's holding you back? I'm going to throw up a couple charts and then talk through how I see what I see with good projects and bad projects moving forward here. I talked a little bit about manufacturers being behind. This is a study out of Deloitte, and again, post-pandemic here, but manufacturers still are at the lowest in the industry of technology budget as a percent of revenue. And I look at this as a glass half full. I think there's a lot of opportunity here for manufacturers to really beef up their infrastructure. But I think that goes back to convincing the executives that there's the ROI, so to speak, associated with those investments. Another interesting study here. This is from Gartner. They've going to the different CIOs at manufacturers and talking about what's the top initiatives within your organization. a lot of these are really good to fall into a digital twin type initiative. So improving quality or service quality, I always think of digital twins as improving that feedback loop. Obviously, automation is and getting rid of manual processes. That's always been a big one, especially if you could get digital twins to factory floor or out into the field. And then just optimizing the factory. So if you look at there's some really good initiatives out there, and I think this is where digital twin, digital thread, and IT can really come into play. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of walk you through. I was thinking, for this presentation, I would just have some bullet points of best practices, but I thought this was a lot of my customers that I talk to, and probably a lot of people watching this webinar, engineers or have done engineering in the past. So I thought I'd put this into more of a formula than just a list of bullet points. So from my perspective, the probability of achieving success for your digital twin project or your smart factory project will come down to a number of key factors here. And I'll walk you through how I see this and talk through each one. But I would say the first one that I usually ask someone when we're starting an engagement is a series of questions around their digital maturity in their organization. And I think this is important because I think a lot of the success of your digital transformation project really is going to come down to what tools do you have at hand. If your organization is still behind in thinking about like, let's say, SaaS and cloud, a lot of vendors such as Vertex and a lot of the other vendors and startups out there, and even the big PLM companies, are moving towards these things at a rapid pace, because that's just the best practice for software development. And if some of these tools are behind in a customer, that's just going to slow your progress and not take advantage of some of the things that we're building. I often talk through about, what do you have in-house developers? That's another kind of leading indicator of, like, are developers a part of your strategic conversation? Are they building tools internally? Are they connecting tools? Are they automating things internally? And one thing that we see quite a bit is they might not be full-time software engineers, but they might be doing a low-code, no-code type platform like Mendix or some of the others that are out there, building business applications, building business logic and things like that. And then just overall, like, what's the IT spend? Going back to that first chart, one thing I'm going to note here at the top, I've got a dot over the digital maturity variable here. So it's not where you're at necessarily. It's what's your rate of change of that maturity. Are you, like, maybe the pandemic was an accelerator, like I was talking about. Are you improving faster than you have in the past? Do you have initiatives to get, off of, installed on-prem based server applications, shifting workloads to the cloud? And by the way, one thing I often find within a manufacturer is that within the actual, let's say, engineering, manufacturing, service organization, they might be slow to adopt cloud. But if you go and talk to some of the back office systems, like with HR or finance and accounting, they're definitely using cloud back there. So you might think that your organization is slow to adopt cloud. I would talk to someone in your corporate IT about who's doing what if you're unsure there. Another factor here, so not only is it a function, your digital twin success probability of your digital maturity, or the rate of change of your digital maturity, it's also how clean is your data? Data quality seems to be one of the biggest challenges that I see early on with digital twin or smart factory project. Oftentimes maybe there's been a lot of data collected historically, so you have a rich amount of information that hasn't really been used. But then when you go back and use it, you realize like, oh wait, do we have do the sensor IDs map to the right physical asset? Can I tie that back to a serial number? Are there duplicate of the same serial number? Like there's all kinds of things that we found where just going through a data cleansing, data quality initiative, I think is probably one of the first places to start. Because if your digital twin data is not clean, it's not going to be worthwhile to anyone. And I would look at some of the best practices out there with data lakes and data warehousing. And if you're interested in how clean your data is, go find someone in your organization that has a title data science. This is a relatively new term for companies within, I'd say the last 10 years, but usually there's someone that's doing data science within your organization that they spend all day, probably 80% of their time just working on this data quality issue. The other large impact to your project here is going to be on scope. And one thing I see quite a bit, sometimes we will be engaged at the department level or just project level. Sometimes we get engaged at the CIO level or the executive level. The larger the scope becomes, I just see the less likely you are to actually have success. And I think being able to really trim it down to just understand what will the minimum amount of scope be in this project to achieve our objective. Is that to the scope of your proof of concept? Is that just enough to prove viability for funding for the pilot phase? I would just really set the scope of the requirements down to a minimum. The more nice to haves that you throw into this project, the less likely you will be to achieve success here. One thing that we do in software is define a minimal viable product, which really is an exercise in looking at all the list of requirements and painfully going through each one and asking yourself, do we really need this? If not, get rid of it. And the other thing that I often see here, sometimes that minimal viable product's outside of your control. Sometimes you have an objective that's defined for you, and someone else is telling you here's what it needs to be. I would try to really collaborate with whoever else is defining those requirements and really drill down to just the essence of what you want with that project. And of course, use lean and agile processes wherever necessary to continuously iterate and improve. One other aspect here that I think is somewhat of an afterthought is what we would call user experience or UX. Oftentimes, these digital twin projects are really driven from a data center perspective. It's like, okay, I've got all of my IoT data over here. I've got my as is bill of materials that I want to connect to, and then out comes like this user interface that's just a result of all the stuff that was going on underneath of it, and it becomes a very data-centered design rather than a human-centered or user-centered design. So one thing, what I see is during the course of these projects is maybe during the same time that you're working on data quality, maybe in the background in a parallel track, really start thinking about your user experience design and build some user prototypes that mock the data that you expect to have with the quality that you want, and really refine what that end user experience is going to be. Think about form factor. Is this someone going to be out in the field? Will they have a smartphone? Will they have a tablet? There's a lot of questions right now about AR hardware or headsets and things like that. What will the form factor be for your digital twin? Is it just a web user interface? I would work with someone that's experienced in building prototypes so that they can mock it up and actually take that to your end users, and you can validate what that user experience is going to be like. So we've talked about the rate of change, your digital maturity, data quality, user experience. As long as all of those are high, that's great. If your scope is high, that's going to cut down on your probability. I'm going to raise this all to the power of your time to value. So if your time to value, and again, I would say everything in here, let's say it's between a 0 and 1, and if you raise that to the time to value, as more time progresses, the probability gets lower, right, exponentially. So if you can make that project happen very quickly, I think you will be successful. And as time drags on, one thing that I just see is maybe stakeholders change out, maybe you change out, maybe the executive or the board changes out. Your funding becomes at risk. Maybe your funding was supposed to be for multi-year, or maybe a pandemic happens. Whatever it is, I would really, again, go back to that scope and look at what's the fastest, cheapest way for us to get a digital twin into production. And oftentimes I talk about, sometimes these digital twin projects are just these big audacious things because people have been talking about them for a while, but this doesn't have to take too long. It can happen. I've been on projects where we've been able to prove value within 30 days and get sign off from the executive team to move forward with the next phase. So it doesn't necessarily need to be that long. And speaking of stakeholders, one thing I would also say, as the number of stakeholders increases, your probability of success goes down. Not to say that stakeholders are bad. I just think that the more people you have involved that will need to be satisfied, it's just going to increase all kinds of complexity with communication, resourcing, budget. Also, going back to that scope, every stakeholder is going to have their own take on what their requirements are to be successful. And so I would just make sure that the number of stakeholders is kept to as small as possible, depending on the phase of the project. So, I look at all these factors, but then at the end of the day, the biggest looming factor out there really is culture. And if there's any one thing that you can really put a number on, is just the willingness to adopt and innovate and try new things within the organization. I used to say that this has to be driven from the top. I think you can do your best on the project or team to be that change agent, and maybe your digital twin project could be that change agent. Right? Can you show value quickly using newer technologies, involving some of these stakeholders like data science and user experience groups that you probably haven't really interfaced with before? I really think that you can make a big difference with some of these Industry 4.0 projects, and that can really show value and what things could be like across the entire organization. But by far, I just think, talking to customers, if they talk about the, you know, being able to, not get access to certain data because, well, we acquired this company, they're over here, they have a different way of doing things, they're not really going to want to share their data with us. You can just tell like when there's going to be cultural issues on the project. So, and again, I think if you set everything else up for success, you can really be the one that drives that. So, with that, this is kind of how I see our best digital twin engagements going at Vertex. And I could sit down with anyone within 30 minutes and talk through each of these risk factors, I would say, or factors for the project, and we would get a pretty good understanding of where we need to spend some time in improving, like I said, data quality, UX, whatever it is. One thing, just so everyone's aware, what Vertex is really doing is, we're a 3D engine that's been that's powering these digital twin initiatives, and so where we come into play is we can connect a data source out of IoT or ERP or MES, whatever it is, some system of record, maybe it's defects, and connect that to your actual CAD geometry. And so you can build digital twins up very quickly and be able to interactively present digital twins of the as-built or as-is products in the field, or including your smart factories. If you're interested, we do have a number of quick start templates that are open sourced on our website. We've got an example of a wind turbine here that's connected to an IoT data source, and we've got this vehicle architecture that's connected to supplier information and some other sources for digital twin. So if you're interested, please check out those examples, and thank you very much. And now I will take any questions. I think you're muted.
No, it's one thing to remember to turn the camera back on. It's another to unmute.
I was hoping I wasn't muted.
It's always me. I do it all the time,
That's funny.
Well, thank you, Matt, and for the presentation. We do have a couple questions here.
Sure.
What workflow have you seen have the highest ROI with using a digital twin?
Can you repeat that real quick?
Oh, I'm sorry. So what workflow have you seen the highest ROI with the digital twin?
So I mean, I'll interpret workflow as just the process. I think one of the teams that we really worked well on, they were Fortune 100 heavy equipment manufacturer, but they had a 2-week agile sprint process, and so for every 2 weeks, they would commit to being able to ship some piece of their digital twin project, and that also gave us an opportunity to align with how they were working, because we also work in a 2-week sprint cycle, which is just an agile methodology. And so with that, every 2 weeks, we could tell them, here's the new things that we've added to our platform. They could tell us, here's what we've built, here's some of the issues that we've encountered. And so we're able to quickly iterate through that. And, by doing so, they were able to do, some things like user testing and things like that very early on. And we're able to see some of the results of that and collaborate on new features and functionality that neither one of us was thinking at the beginning. So from a workflow perspective, I just I'm a little bit of a lean agile zealot myself. I just think it's the best way to incorporate feedback throughout the course of the project. So
Very good. With for Where are files stored with Vertex? Do you have any certifications for highly restricted data?
yeah, this comes up quite a bit for us on on the CAD geometry side. Um, and we fully appreciate that the CAD data is probably the most sensitive data source within a manufacturer. So we take that job very seriously. Our ability to be able to consume that CAD data, and what we go through a pretty robust encryption process, and have all the certifications for SOC 2 Type 2. We use AWS best practices when it relates to that, and customers can also choose to deploy Vertex within their own virtual private cloud environments. And so from a file format and security perspective, one interesting thing about our digital twin applications that we're building, there isn't really a file format for Vertex. In the 3D world, everyone talks about file formats. We pull the data out of the CAD file, figure out what we need to do with it from a rendering perspective, and encrypt it and store it into logical databases. But there's no real file format that we use at Vertex. Yeah, it's a good question.
One more for you. Can you give an example of how you've seen a company use Vertex with this equation to achieve success?
Yeah, I will admit that I created this formula after the fact of viewing both projects be successful and fail. And so to me, these are just kind of rules of thumbs on what you need to look out for. I'm sure there's some other risk factors that I didn't really discuss there, but I feel like now that I've kind of developed this methodology, if you came to me and someone came to me and talked, I might put up the formula and we could just walk through what we feel like the value is for each of these, and talk through how to best achieve it. But from taking this formula and applying it to the projects that I've been a part of, I think everything checks out. So yeah, that's a good question.
Excellent. Well, I think those were all the questions that we had for today, but thank you again so much to Matt for presenting for us, and Vertex for partnering with us and being an ongoing partner. And we definitely appreciate working with you guys. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Courtney.
You bet. So just want to share with you again, thanks to Matt and to Vertex. And we invite you to listen to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. You can find it on your favorite podcast streaming platforms. New episodes are released every Wednesday. Matt has been on a guest on the show a couple times, so give a listen to episodes 26 and 52. Check those out there. Again, I'm Courtney, Marketing Communications Manager. If you have any questions, I'm always here to help. You can also find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And Digital Enterprise Society is, again, a nonprofit member association organized to enable transformation of the product development, design, delivery, and maintenance throughout the digital enterprise, regardless of those software tools you're using. We invite you to join Digital Enterprise Society. If you're not a member, visit us at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.